Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, the tiny URL and QR code here are linked. We're just going to let everyone get in, get settled, and just a reminder that we are recording to be able to post onto our website. All right. So again, thank you so much all for being here today. Today's training is brought to you by both Open Access and Placer County Office of Education. My name is Emily Desjardins. I'm the UDL AT Content Lead with Open Access. And with me is the wonderful Mimi Zimlick, also a UDL AT Content Lead, and also Lauren Fury, who's a Program Manager with Placer County Office of Education. So thank you guys so much for being here with us. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Open Access, I know I saw many familiar faces on the registration, so thank you for being here if you are already familiar with Open Access, and thank you to everyone joining us for the first time. So Open Access is one of the special education resource leads located within the statewide system of support. We are funded by the California Department of Education and the California Collaborative for Educational Excellence. We're really grounded in the foundational belief that with access to quality instruction, all students can engage and actively participate within inclusive settings. What makes our project very unique, I think, is that we really integrate universal design for learning, assistive technology, and augmentative and alternative communication. We have our website link and also our one-pager, both linked on these slides and in our home-based document. So feel free to click on those links and explore around. If you're interested in more information, we provide universal, targeted, and intensive supports, and you can see more examples of what those things are on that one-pager. But you are currently attending one of our universal supports, one of our universal trainings, and that's this engagement and math seminar. So we're so excited that you're here today. We also have lots of resources on our website. Feel free to explore, reach out with any questions at all as well. So we have lots of resources we'll be sharing with you today. Again, they are both on the home-based document and linked on this slide as well. So we have our Open Access website, lots of different things to dig in there. I want to highlight our events tab where you can find other free events such as this, lots of virtual and in-person events in Placer County, so feel free to explore that events tab. We also have a blog and all kinds of resources for UDL, AT, and AAC. We have the CAST UDL 3.0 guidelines, which we're going to talk about a little bit today. The Math Success for All website is amazing. It is brought to you by Placer County Office of Education, by CCSESA, I want to make sure I say that right, the California County Superintendent's Educational Services Association, and then also the California Partnership for Math and Science Education. We have our Open Access UDL Resource Flip Kit, and then we also have the CCLA Mathematics webpage. So feel free to explore those, bookmark them, share them with anybody. So at Open Access, we're very much committed to UDL principles, and we do our very best to make our presentations as accessible as possible. We have our simple backgrounds with high contrast text. We make sure when we're in person that we have digital and print access to materials. We always provide our tiny URL and QR code so that you can access all of our resources. And then we do our best to make things as engaging by providing as many examples and non-examples as possible. And really, we would encourage you. I know this is a virtual webinar, and sometimes that can make participation maybe feel like something you're a little hesitant to do. We really encourage you to participate. Comment in the chat, feel free to react, and we'll try to make this as engaging as possible. So we always like to start all of our presentations with an inclusive welcome, and this is absolutely not something we created, but it is one of the signature practices from the CASEL signature playbook, and that is the Collaborative for Social Emotional Learning. So again, we did not make this up, but many fabulous ways to do this. Today, we are asking you to introduce yourself either in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself and just share out loud. But introduce yourself, and if you wouldn't mind, share a positive experience you've had involving math. And this can be something in the classroom or it can be something out of the classroom. And think about what made it positive for you. So we'll spend a few minutes, and again, feel free to unmute or share in the chat. We've got to have some positive experiences with math. Come on. I'm just teasing. Oh, Rudy said, oh, got lots of people now. Sorry, people just needed typing time. Okay. Rudy had a math teacher who designed airplane parts and would bring his personal experiences and relate them to math. Oh, that's so cool. Yvette always enjoyed hands-on learning with math. Fantastic. Jessica, we're working on time in my class using games like matching and bingo, and kids are engaged and making progress. Oh, yay, that's so exciting. Lori had a fun math class in high school, and what made it fun was figuring out problems. Ooh, that's awesome. I feel like one of my most exciting math moments was as a teacher sitting in a teacher training in middle school and being introduced to Common Core math and sitting there genuinely thinking, oh my gosh, was I meant to be a mathematician and I never realized it because I've never had math manipulatives in algebra. And I just remember having all these aha moments like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Maybe that's what got me into UDL without me even knowing it. Awesome. Wendy says, I love pulling math manipulatives into instruction. Awesome. Fantastic. Neil is from CAST and joining. Awesome. Thanks for being here, Neil. One of my favorite experiences was a teacher that took the time to unpack how to keep an organized notebook. Ooh, I know it's not impressive, but nobody had ever taught me those organizational skills before. No, that's very impressive. Love it. Thank you, guys. Ooh, and Lori says, as a site principal, we held number talks in the classroom, high levels of engagement. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for participating. I appreciate it. All right, so for today, we're really going to be focusing on kind of providing an overview of universal design for learning and then building in some engagement strategies and giving some specific examples of ways to make math engaging and then linking those to the universal design for learning guidelines. And our hope is really that you can kind of see in action some of the engagement strategies and connections that we can add to math to make it engaging and powerful, and then reflect a little bit on our experience and connect it to the Universal Design for Learning guidelines. So we really want to start by addressing the why behind we want to focus on building this engagement within math specifically. When we look at our CASP data, and in this chart you can see from 2015 to 2022, we can really see that math achievement has remained largely flat across all student groups, with many still performing far below grade level. Our English language learners, students with disabilities, foster youth, Black or African American students consistently score lowest with fewer than 1 in 5 meeting standards. And I think this data really highlights that persistent achievement gap and really underscores that urgent need for us to boost engagement and support in math, particularly for our historically underserved student groups. So this is a different way of looking at the exact same data, different chart, but same data as the last slide. And I think these CASP results really remind us of that challenge and that opportunity ahead in math. We know too many of our students are not yet meeting standards. And, even our higher performing groups have seen drops since 2019. And this isn't really about test scores, but it's more about opening doors for every student's future. So we are hoping that we can really, ignite some excitement for math and build some engagement strategies by creating some hands-on exploration and some real-world problem solving, and also really focusing on that belief that every student can be a mathematician. And I think that belief right there is going to be really important as we work on building our engagement strategies, because we can connect them to things, maybe looking at math in different ways that we hadn't thought of. So As we're moving forward today, our learning path is going to be, we're going to start a little bit of an overview of Universal Design for Learning. I'm sure everyone in this room has quite a variety in their range of knowledge. Maybe some of you haven't quite heard of UDL. Maybe some of you could teach a course on UDL. So I'm sure there's quite a range. So we'll do a short introduction. And then we're going to do a couple of math engagement examples. You guys will get to participate in the cake task and the drivers of investigation. And we're going to have some time to sort of reflect and think about how this connects with UDL, and then we'll wrap us up. So today we're here from 3 to 4:30 because it's a shorter session. We're not going to have any breaks today, but we really encourage you to take care of your needs. If you need to take a restroom break or grab a snack, drink anything, we encourage you to take care of your own needs throughout. Okay, so we're going to start with just a very brief overview of UDL. So Universal Design for Learning is most certainly it's not a curriculum, it's not a program, it's not a checklist, it's not a to-do list. It's really a teaching framework created by CAST that is based on research in the learning sciences that really guides the development of flexible methods, materials, and environments. And it braces variability, minimizes barriers, and works towards developing learner agency for all. Ultimately, the goal of UDL is really to support learners in developing their own learner agency so that our students are motivated to learn, they understand how they learn best, and they have strategies to support their learning when they get stuck. I really like to think of the UDL framework as a list of how human beings learn best because it's really based on that neuroscience. These are not necessarily new concepts. It's not a new program. It's not an idea, a new concept, new idea. I really like to think of it as, there's a really great quote that a 6th grade teacher said, and who's implementing UDL, and she says, UDL is not one more thing, or it's not one new thing. It's one thing that you can put all that you know into. When you're looking at the specific guidelines, which we'll get to in a minute, you're going to see a lot of things you're probably very familiar with that aren't particularly new, but they're really best practices all put together. So I hope that it doesn't feel like something new or big. So the primary purpose of UDL is really to design learning experiences that reach every student. So in order to do that, we have to think about 2 primary concepts within UDL. The first one is this idea of variability. So UDL embraces the concept that everyone is a unique learner and really rejects this notion of an average learner. Recognizing that variability is contextual and can be planned for, UDL really acknowledges that every student has individual strengths, preferences, and challenges. And when we can really accept the diversity of our learners, UDL can help us plan for that range of variability and create that flexible learning environment that really looks at more of the range instead of targeting the middle. The second concept is this idea of a barrier. So UDL recognizes that obstacles to learning are found within the environment, not within the learner. These barriers can come in many different forms, such as materials that are presented only in one format, or classroom routines that assume that students all process information the same way, or maybe physical spaces that limit movement or access. But barriers can also arise with technology, tools, pacing, assessment options that just don't offer flexibility to match those students' varied strengths and preferences. So UDL really seeks to identify and reduce these challenges, remove these barriers proactively, and really look to proactively remove or minimize these barriers. So UDL really works to ensure that all students have equal opportunity to access and engage with that curriculum. So let's take a look at the guidelines themselves. There's a QR code that will take you to the CAST website and the UDL guidelines. There's also a link here, and again, it is located on the CAST website. So the UDL guidelines were originally created almost 30 years ago, and they have shifted slightly, but the concepts have really remained the same. So just last July 2024, CAST released the UDL 3.0 guidelines. And again, although the same concepts of creating multiple means of engagement, representation, and action expression have remained the same, there were some adjustments. So this update really focused on addressing barriers rooted in biases and systems of exclusion. Another addition to the guidelines that we absolutely love was the addition of nurturing joy and play. But we're going to take a minute to just unpack these guidelines. So UDL has 3 overarching principles: engagement, that why of learning; representation, the what of learning; and then action and expression, that how of learning. And as you can see, they're color-coded by each of these overarching principles, and then they're associated with the 3 networks of the brain: the affective, the recognition, and the strategic network. Below each principle are 3 guidelines, 9 altogether. And these really help in developing a learning environment where all students can find success. And along the side here, you can see how they're divided up between access, support, and executive function. And then within each guideline, you'll find considerations, and each consideration is really a specific way to support the guideline. These are researched and evidence-based strategies. And again, like I said before, really just a list of best strategies. Some of them might be new to you, but many of them you're going to look at and be like, oh yeah, I know that, I do that already, right? These are things that are happening in classrooms all together in a nice, beautiful little format. And then all of these parts of the guidelines work together to really help create learner agency for our students. And the ultimate goal is really for our students to become learners who are purposeful and reflective, resourceful and authentic, strategic, and action-oriented. So we're gonna head into our very first math activity, but before we do that, we wanna just give you a little bit of an overview of our Zoom whiteboard, how to use it, what all the tools and strategies are within whiteboards, and we're actually gonna give you a minute to trial the features on a test board. So I wanna make sure you guys have seen this and have an idea of what these things are. So within Zoom Whiteboard, you're going to be able to use the pen or the highlighter, the pen/highlighter, to be able to draw or at least highlight to emphasize the content. You can use the text tool to be able to type out notes. And then you can add visual ideas using the sticky notes option, or you can insert specific shapes or arrows using the shapes feature. And then finally, you can edit or reposition elements using the select or move feature. So we're going to spend a minute doing a little test whiteboard and make sure everyone can access this and answer any questions that people might have. So I'm going to share a whiteboard with everybody. So in this whiteboard, everybody should have access, and I'm going to ask that everyone test something out. You can test all of it or you can test one thing. That's totally your choice, but we want to make sure you guys understand how to use whiteboard before we start our activity. Okay, I see people adding text. Love it. Good messages. Oh, pi. We're using pi. We're going deep, guys. Love it. And if anyone has any questions, please make sure to type them in the chat, or you're welcome to unmute as well. I want to draw your attention right over here in this little board right here. When we are doing our whiteboard, you were going to be in breakout sessions, and so there's going to be different pages that you can choose from based on your breakout session. So I want to make sure to draw your attention here. You guys can go to any one of page 1. So when we're doing this as a whole group, depending on the breakout session you're in or breakout room you're in, let's say you're in breakout room 4, you're going to want to go to page 4, and that's what your team is going to work on. But everyone will have access to all of them, so we can look through, but please work on your own. So go ahead and practice navigating to a different page, and maybe make a comment on another page or draw a picture, just so you kind of understand how to navigate between those. All right, looks like everyone has a good hang of this. All right, I'm gonna switch back to sharing my screen. Come on, you can do it. All right, thanks, tech. It worked. Okay, so like I said, you are going to be in breakout sessions for this activity. And so at least one member is going to need to, in your breakout session, is going to need to open up this breakout whiteboard. So it will be shared with you. But what participants are going to need to do once you're in your breakout session, you're going to click on the whiteboards. You're going to go to existing whiteboard, and then you'll find this whiteboard with this may or may not be a math problem. Right down here, the blue and the red, and it's owned by Leah. So you guys will see this down here, and you can open it from there. And then again, like we had talked about before, because you're in breakout sessions, make sure you go to that number that's associated with your breakout session. And again, feel free to add any questions into the chat or unmute, and we can get you handled.
Thank you, Emily. We're very excited to have you try our new tool here. We were having fun with it earlier also, so I hope you enjoy it as much as we did. But now we've been given some guidelines. We want to engage in some math right away. And I know that after you do some thinking together, you'll come back to the UDL guidelines and see how that activity demonstrates those considerations. So in a moment, you're going to go and click on that existing whiteboard that Emily showed you, and you'll have a whiteboard for your own breakout room. We're going to randomly put you into assigned groups, and there'll be a task on that whiteboard where we want you and your group to interact. Before we do that, though, there's a question. Would you rather be a 32 degree or 102 degree day outside? So in your group, when you go to your breakout room, on your whiteboard, introduce yourself. Somebody else will write your name on the whiteboard along with your answer to that question. It's not about getting a right answer. It's about thinking. We want you to record all of your thinking. There's going to be different ideas and different approaches, and we encourage that. We want to make sure that everyone's thinking is honored and all the thinking matters. If you don't have access to write, maybe somebody can write for you. I want you to work together, share your ideas, and see where your thinking takes you. And just remember, mistakes are a part of the thinking process. Let's look at the next slide for just a second. This is what will be on your boards. And I just want to make sure you recognize it. All right, I think we're ready to go to groups. I noticed that there was a variety of ways of using that tool, and that was a great learning experience for myself and our team, I'm sure. Great. Yeah, let's go. I just want to say one thing about that activity. Um, I heard one person talking about the number of people mattering to them, and I heard somebody else talking about the shape of the cake being a square mattering to them. There was a variety of representations that people were using on their whiteboards. There were some numbers and some were shapes. There was also conversation, so I liked hearing the representations in a variety of ways. So um, thank you for having fun doing math on the whiteboards.
Awesome. Thank you, Lori. So we want to take a minute to kind of notice and name how you're feeling as a participant, and maybe what did you notice Lori as the facilitator doing? What did you notice of your group members, your teammates, and really think about your experience, your own engagement. Maybe think about the strategies or actions of of your group and maybe some strategies that your group members came up with that maybe were different than yours, what supports were provided, and whether you are super familiar with the guidelines or not, that is okay. Don't feel like you have to be. I'm going to open up the CAST website. Whoa, that link went somewhere else than I wanted it to. Sorry about that. So this is a link to the CAST UDL guidelines. A link to the website is also located as well. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger because that's awfully small, isn't it? Here we go. I want you guys to be able to see this. Okay. So hopefully you can see some of these considerations that are listed here and think a little bit. You're welcome to add this to the chat. You're welcome to add this. You can unmute and talk a little bit about maybe what you noticed about your own engagement, what you noticed about your other team members' engagement, and think about maybe if this connects to any of the considerations you see here. Again, I know this can be really overwhelming, so maybe I'll highlight a few for you. I'm hoping that maybe that fostering collaboration, interdependence, and collective learning was something you might have noticed. Maybe fostering belonging and community. There was a little bit of choice in how this was solved and how you thought about it. Maybe you developed a little awareness of yourself and how you learn in this activity, or maybe how others learn. I think there was really a lot of multiple ways that you could have maybe not perceived this information, but multiple ways for you to show your understanding or show your knowledge. I heard lots of different symbols being used. Some were choosing to draw pictures, some were writing, some were thinking about this in unique ways, unique perspectives. So maybe that was something you noticed. So maybe take a couple minutes to look at these guidelines and think about if there's anything that connects to you and what you noticed as you were completing this activity. And give it another minute to let people think and take a look.
I'm wondering if anybody will share how they felt when they were in the breakout room with a group.
I can share. I loved my breakout group. I thought that they were very collaborative and playful, and I wasn't able to do an image for whether I liked what temperature I liked, and somebody else in the group did a great image for me, which was really nice, of a dog lying. I think it was a dog lying on his back with a fan on him for 102-degree weather.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, Wendy. What I'm noticing is it sounds like she was really able to connect with those she was working with and she was enjoyed collaborating. And I want to highlight something here because this nurture, joy, and play, this new edition of the consideration is just one of my favorites. And there's a lot of research that we as human beings can find a lot of joy in just being able to problem solve and collaborate with each other. And so those opportunities for collaboration can really nurture that joy and play. And I love that. Oh, and Kim says an example of sustaining effort and persistence. Yes, that too. I love it. So many guidelines all at once, so many considerations all at once. I love it. Fostering collaboration. Absolutely. I love that. Thank you guys so much for sharing. I appreciate it. So as we talked about earlier, really the ultimate goal of the guidelines is to create that learner agency. However, in the past, the ultimate goal was to create expert learners. And so this language shift really came about a year ago, July 2024, when the guidelines were updated. And really this shift came from really focusing on wanting to focus on that variability piece within our learners, that rather than there being one way, an expert way for learners to be able to do something, instead acknowledging that we all learn differently and that there is variability in how we show our understanding, kind of removed some of that systems of exclusion, kind of helped remove that barrier of one way to show our knowledge, right? And so with really highlighting that learner variability, we really emphasize that every learner brings their unique strengths and challenges and experience to the table. And, the expert learner model was absolutely valuable as well. And that's not to downplay how important that was, because it was, but it really unintentionally suggested that one size fits all path to expertise. And so the shift is really much more about, instead of molding our students into this kind of predetermined idea of an expert, that we are helping them by providing them tools and flexibility and support in order to take charge of their learning and really help them learn in a way that works best for them.
Okay, thank you, Emily, and thank you everyone for taking a moment to be really metacognitive about your learning and your interaction as you did some math together over the cake task. Um, I want to point something out that I forgot to earlier. Kim dropped a link in the chat for a Would You Rather math website. That's where we got the cake task from, and there are many other math problems there, should you be looking for those. What we'll do now is we'll take all of these connections that we're making, and we are going to use the math framework to build more understanding about how to create learning experiences for our students that allow them to be universally designed and provide access to our students in ways that maybe they haven't before. You won't necessarily need a whiteboard for this activity, so thank you for playing with that tool. But in our breakout groups, feel free to use it again if you would like, but it's not required. We want to make this connection of learner agency to include group agency through fostering conversation and ideas of the group. We can do this with some prior knowledge and learning assets. So we want to showcase that all students have something to bring to the learning. And this practice is not only great for math, it's great for all content areas. So what you'll be doing in a moment is you'll be using a round robin strategy to engage with the West Ed QTEL strategy of novel ideas only. And I want to let you know, if you haven't seen a round robin before, or maybe if you had and you can remember the rules, but during a round robin, each person shares without any interruption, and you don't get to pass on your turn unless you're driving. I think that maybe we can make the exception for that, or if you're in a place where it's not appropriate for you to say your response. But each person, we would love for you to participate if you are able to. Um, Only after all the members of the group have shared can there be elaboration or question asking and working together to answer questions that group members may have. Let's do a novel ideas only. So here are the rules. Go ahead and advance the slide if you would. Oh, there we go. We're good. As a group, you'll have approximately 3 minutes to brainstorm or jot down together possible responses to the prompt. The prompt will be given to you in shortly. It is on this slide, but during this activity, each person will take turns sharing their idea in a round robin fashion. What would be great is if somebody shares an idea, for example, the word motor, then every person in the group would also say the word, echo it. So they would say motor. Then everybody is going to write down that idea on their list. Each group's paper, so we encourage you to have a piece of paper in front of you when you're doing this, writing down ideas, or you can hold your list digitally. That would be fine. You can also use the chat. I think there's a way to do that in the group. Each group's list should be the same by the end of the activity. And then you're going to select, you're going to select a word that will be typed into the chat after we come back, and we'll do a chat waterfall. So here's the prompt. When I think about drive, I think about, and you fill in the blank. So an example might be when I think about drive, I think about cars. And then somebody in my group would unmute and say cars. And then we would all write the word cars down. So our number one item is cars. And then maybe Emily goes and she says, when I think about drive, I think about golf. So I would say golf. And then we would all write golf. So now our list has cars and golf. So we're going to give you about 3 minutes to generate your list in your group. Please let us know if you have any questions. We'll be happy to help you.
Oh, okay. So my question was, when we were using the clarifying chart, we used the elementary. And when Rudy was reading, he says, I was a little confused on ABC. Do we have to respond with the adjoining box to say, yes, I was confused about, or could we go down to the bottom where it says, well, I think this meant ABC?
You have the element of choice. It was intended that you use one row, but it doesn't mean that it wouldn't work if you tried doing different rows or different parts with it. So originally, if you're rolling this out with maybe a younger group of students or students who you think would benefit from using this, then you would probably give them one row at a time. And so there wouldn't be a whole lot of options there, but as they build their practice, there would be a few more. So it's kind of it's a yes and kind of response to that, Yvette. So thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Great. And I know you didn't get through all the reading, but that's all right because you processed some information together. You had an experience that was collaborative, and you were also using some tools to make sense of the reading that you had. So I appreciate that you were able to engage in that activity, even with the short amount of time. So I will turn it over to Emily.
Thank you, Lori. So we're going to kind of really try to dive into that reflection piece a little bit and think about these last couple of activities, doing the novel ideals only, and then in the breakout session, and then again, that clarifying bookmark activity, and think about how you were feeling as a learner during those two activities. What was it about that task itself that made those feelings? Maybe what impact did that driver have on your approach and enjoyment while doing the math? Did you experience any learner agency? Did you feel engaged? And then how might you feel about math after an experience like this? So think a little bit about it. And again, you're more than welcome to unmute or just type into the chat, but I would love to hear kind of how you're processing this. And if you want to connect it to a consideration, you can. You don't have to. We can just talk about how we're feeling, talk about engagement, talk about agency. But if we do want to notice a name as well, I'm happy to pull up those guidelines again if you want to look for some specific considerations to connect it to as well. I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. Rudy says very language based. True. How did that make you feel? Ooh, interaction. Love it. Collaboration and hopefully some community creation and being able to form some new relationships. Thank you guys so very much. All right, we want to, I love it. Collective learning, expression and communication. Awesome. I love it. We want to take a couple of minutes to be able to do a little question and answer before we dive into our intentional close. Does anyone have any questions about any of the activities that we did today? About the connection between UDL and math, about the math activities we did and UDL, anything you have questions about? And again, feel free to unmute or type in the chat, whatever works better for you. We'll let you guys think a little bit about questions. We can always come back to that, but I'm gonna transition us to Mimi. It's gonna bring it home.
So for our intentional closing today, we're going to watch a short video of Jo Boaler. She's a researcher and professor of mathematics at Stanford University, and she's known for her work on math learning, growth mindset, and equity in education. So it's about a 3-minute video, and we're going to spend some time watching that right now.
So how many people here, let's get a show of hands, have ever been given the idea that they're not a math person or that they can't go on to the next level of math, they haven't got the brains for it? Let's see a show of hands. So quite a few of us. And I'm here to tell you that idea is completely wrong. It is disproven by the brain science, but it is fueled by a single myth that's out there in our society that's very strong and very dangerous. And the myth is that there's such a thing as a math brain, that you're born with one or you're not. We don't believe this about other subjects. We don't think we're born with a history brain or a physics brain. We think you have to learn those. But with math, students believe it, teachers believe it, parents believe it. And until we change that single myth, we will continue to have widespread underachievement in this country. Carol Dweck's research on mindset has shown us that if you believe in your unlimited potential, you will achieve at higher levels in maths and in life. And an incredible study on mistakes showed this very strongly. So Jason Moser and his colleagues actually found from MRI scans that your brain grows when you make a mistake in maths. Fantastic. When you make a mistake, synapses fire in the brain. And in fact, in their MRI scans, they found that when people made a mistake, synapses fired. When they got work correct, less synapses fired. So making mistakes is really good. And we want students to know this, but they found something else that was pretty incredible. This image shows you the voltage maps of people's brains. And what you can see here is that people with a growth mindset who believed that they had unlimited potential, they could learn anything, when they made a mistake, their brains grew more than the people who didn't believe that they could learn anything. So this shows us something that brain scientists have known for a long time, that our cognition and what we learn is linked to our beliefs and to our feelings. And this is important for all of us, not just kids in math classrooms. If you go into a difficult situation or a challenging situation and you think to yourself, I can do this, I'm going to do it, and you mess up or fail, your brain will grow and more and react differently than if you go into that situation thinking, I don't think I can do this. So it's really important that we change the messages kids get in classrooms. We know that anybody can grow their brain, and brains are so plastic, to learn any level of maths. We have to get this out to kids. They have to know that mistakes are really good. But maths classrooms have to change in a lot of ways. It's not just about changing messages for kids. We have to fundamentally change what happens in classrooms. And we want kids to have a growth mindset, to believe that they can grow and learn anything. But it's very difficult to have a growth mindset in maths if you're constantly given short, closed questions that you get right or wrong. Those questions themselves transmit fixed messages about math, that you can do it or you can't. So we have to open up maths questions so that there's space inside them for learning.
Great. I want you guys to take a moment to kind of take a shift
So
from
how many people here? Let's get a show of
That's my fault, sorry.
no worries. To kind of shift from the watching to wondering a little bit and consider some of these reflection questions. What is one small shift you can make tomorrow that invites more students to see themselves as capable and valued mathematicians? And how might shifting from a focus on getting the right answer to exploring mathematical thinking change the way your students engage with math? And again, you can unmute yourself and share, type in the chat, or just kind of think about it on your own.
I could share something. I was with a class yesterday, and the teacher asked a question that was more open. Just how many different ways can we do this was the question, and it changed the classroom from being kind of down to open and excited. So I thought that was really neat.
Great answers in the chat as well. Thank you guys so much for the collaboration. Oh, Kim says, what if we took away the getting the right answer by giving the answer and asking for the thinking? Oh, I love that. And Wendy, small shift. You use more math questions that can be graphed and analyzed. Love it. Thank you guys so much for all the collaboration. We want to thank you guys so very much for being here today. We appreciate all your participation and all your interaction. We look forward to hopefully seeing everybody again on September 11th for the second set of the series, but we would really ask you to provide some feedback for us. We really, really do take your feedback to heart. We use it in planning all of our follow-ups and everything. So if you guys could take a couple of minutes to fill out that survey, that would be fantastic. Again, the QR code is here, the link is here, and Leah's also putting the link in the chat as well. So if you wouldn't mind taking a couple of moments, that would be fantastic. And then we do also want to share a couple of other upcoming learning opportunities for you, but I also don't want to leave the QR code quite yet. So I'll give it a second. But I guess link is in the chat, so I'm going to zoom along here. If you aren't familiar with our inclusive learning circles, they are monthly webinars that we rotate the themes to be AAC, assisted or augmentative alternative communication, assistive technology, and then UDL. So every month from 3 to 4 p.m. And there's a flyer and registration link in located on the home base document and in our slides as well. We also regularly update our social media, so please follow us and check out our link and information and all that fun stuff. And we appreciate you guys so much being here. Again, our contact information is located on the slides and again on the home base document. So feel free to reach out with any questions at all. And we hope to see you guys all on September 11th as well. So thank you guys so much for being here. I'm going to go back to our survey as well. Thank you.